Hello everyone, top 3 DPS Warframes. Well, in Warframe, we have abundance of Warframes that can do incredible amounts of damage, and today I'm going to be rounding it up to 3 Warframes that are incredibly good at it. Of course, as we all know, and you guys will be leaving comments in the comment section below, number 3 is not worse than number 2, and so on and so forth. They're all just really incredible and good damage dealing Warframes, clearing out the rooms with, of course, the right setup as well, because of course we do have the option of using primaries, secondaries, and of course, you know, using melee weapons, so we do have to count that. But purely DPS Warframes, as in their abilities to clear out a room, of course, Steel Path gameplay, and not just playing around in normal star charts. So without any further delays and dilly-dallying, let's get straight into the number 3 Warframe. At number 3 we have our beloved Khora, with her, of course, a Whipclaw. With Whipclaw, Khora can destroy basically any room, any enemy, anything that appears is basically gonna die if in 2 or 3 strikes, or even 1 if you're really good. Now, I'm gonna quickly sum up how Whipclaw works, but there's better videos and full videos on how this works. Basically, it is a pseudo exalted melee weapon. What does this mean? This means basically it's gonna utilize the mods from your melee weapon equipped. The one that I'm using is the Khora Prime. You probably saw the builder, you're seeing it right now. And what you're gonna do is focus on pure damage, critical chance, critical damage, and you're gonna focus on elemental damage as well. The one that I'm using is corrosive. You can choose whichever one you want. I prefer corrosive instead of viral, but it's up to you. Now, basically, it's gonna utilize that, and the higher your combo counter is and the longer you sustain it, the higher, of course, your damage output is gonna be. Using the mod Accumulating Whipclaw, you're gonna be doing even more damage, and if enemies are trapped in your 4th ability, which is Strangle Dome, they're gonna be susceptible to even more damage, which is very good, yes. Venari is her 3rd ability. We're gonna switch that out for basically anything that allows you to survive at least a little bit more, but I personally didn't really sacrifice anything. I didn't really put on anything other than Nourish, because I love Nourish on my core. It makes her really good and never run out of energy. Ensnare basically entraps enemies, and then the one enemy that you ensnare is gonna drag in even more enemies and giving you a damage multiplier as well. So that is very nice. Khora basically is incredibly good. Of course, Pilfering Strangle Dome allowing you to get even more loot, Accumulating Whipclaw allowing you to Whipclaw to do even more damage, and especially if you have a really good Riven on your melee weapon, you're gonna be killing everything in one shot, if not 2, if not just like basically looking at them and they're gonna be dying. Now, my average damage with my core is around 1 million at 12x combo multiplier. I do use the Naramon focus cool, if I'm correct, for of course a power spike, allowing me to keep my combo multiplier up. And basically all you need to do is just do that. Get yourself a good melee weapon, doesn't matter which one, other than of course being at a combo stopping multiplier. These melee weapon, which are these weapons, so do not use these weapons because the combo resets, and you do not want that. So basically that is it. And put enemies in your Strangle Dome, use Nourish or whichever other ability, or even Arcane Energize if you put on your Warframe to give yourself energy, because you will be running out of energy with Whipclaw. Believe me, it's gonna drain your energy like there's no tomorrow. And that's basically it. You kill everything, everything dies, you get more loot, and you survive, and you can pretty much stay in Steel Path as long as you want, as long as you're pretty much utilizing Brief Respite, Rolling Guard, and that's it. Just try not to die, because everything else around you definitely will. So that was number 3. Let's move on to number 2. At the number 2, we of course have our beloved Saryn. Of course, Saryn is incredibly good at killing enemies, and of course that's why she's on the list, and because of her spores, her 1st ability, that is why this is possible. Spores basically applies corrosive and applies little spores on the enemies. Now if you shoot these spores directly, they're gonna spread, and of course they're gonna be doing increased damage over time. The more they spread, the better they are usually. Now of course, without needing and wanting to aim at these spores directly, because you're probably gonna be using an AoE weapon, Toxic Lash is incredibly good for that. Applying Toxin on your weapon, your primary and secondary, and of course on your melee weapon, which is very good. But the best thing is you don't have to aim and destroy the spores directly, just shoot that enemy affected and it's gonna spread around like wildfire. And of course, spores is incredibly good at this because of course the more enemies it affects, the better it is, and plus it's corrosive reducing enemy armor, which we really like. Molt is used for surviving, of course. Molt increases your speed, basically draws enemy fire, and also with the augment regenerative mode allows you to get your health back. This is the ability that I use for shield gaining personally because it doesn't cost a lot of energy to cast. You're gaining a lot of energy anyway, and also this is gonna allow you to move faster and also make you survive a little bit better. Miasma is her fourth ability. Basically she bursts out, deals viral damage in a certain range, and there you basically that's basically it. Now this is a really good thing, but Miasma in my opinion isn't the best thing at higher levels, so that's why I changed it out for Gloom for extra health and of course crowd controlling as well. But Miasma can be pretty useful at lower levels of course as well. Now it does give your spores a 4x damage multiplier, which is very good, and gives you viral as well. The enemies that are already on spores are more susceptible to this, so that means basically the 4 times multiplier. But honestly, in my opinion, Gloom is much better, because if you use Miasma a little bit too much and a little bit too many enemies get affected by spores, which in Steel Path is very possible, the chances of you keeping your spores up without them decaying is pretty low, because you're going to be doing tremendous amounts of damage. So basically what I did is I handicapped my Saryn a little bit by that opinion, but nonetheless she's incredibly good. You could try her, but her survivability with only Moto is not that good, so I don't know, maybe you can change that out, make it a little bit better. But that's basically Saryn, and of course use whichever weapon you personally want. I basically ran with the same weapons with all 3 of these Warframes and it worked out pretty good. So that's been it, number 2, Saryn. Let's move on to of course number 1. And at number 1, I think we were all expecting this Octavia and Octavia Prime, the most scalable Warframe in the game. Basically, the higher the level of the enemies, the higher the damage of this Warframe becomes. Mallet is her first ability, basically drawing in enemy fire. The more enemies shoot it, and the higher the damage is, the higher the damage that Mallet does. A Resonator basically picks up Mallet, charms the enemies to actually follow the Resonator and the Mallet as well, and basically doing mobile damage instead of stationary damage, so that is quite nice. Metronome, basically doing certain actions to the beat will allow you to give you certain buffs. So crouching is gonna give you invisibility, of course jumps are gonna give you a speed buff, of course we have a firing in the rhythm will give you a multi-shot buff, and melee swings will give you a melee damage bonus. And amp, basically what this does is takes in the surrounding decibel level, so the louder it is and more things happening in the area, the bigger the damage is. It amplifies the damage of you and your allies, and also doubles the range and damage of nearby mallets, so making this basically a 200% mallet damage and range boost, maxing out and increasing your damage as well, and your abilities damage and your allies as well. This is incredibly good, and her passive does give you energy per second, and she also does have the Manticore, sorry, not the Manticore, but the Manticord, and basically that allows you to make your own songs, so that's pretty cool, I guess. Now, depending on how you make your songs, you can certainly buff certain abilities, but I'm not too in-depth with it. Basically, I picked like a random song, and I'm basically doing incredible amounts of damage, but her real passive is basically 1 energy per 30 seconds, and this activates every couple of seconds, so that's pretty cool. Now, other than that, basically the best part of Octavia is you just go invisible, activate all 4 of your abilities. First of all, you have basically infinite energy. You're almost never gonna run out of energy. I do have Arcane Energize just in case, but that's basically it. But other than that, this Warframe, just like you go invisible, but of course Keep in mind, there's the difference between invisible and invincible, so keep that in mind and try to go invisible somewhere where they're not going to shoot you or slash and dash you. And that's basically it. This Warframe will eliminate everything and anything. When your ability is about to run out, recast them. There you go, and that's basically it. The damage does reset, but nonetheless you're still gonna be killing enemies because of the amazing scalability of this Warframe. And I've seen people do 2 hours, 3 hours, 5-hour runs with this Warframe and not die even one single time and needing to use their primary or secondary weapon. This Warframe is incredible for damage dealing, and this video is sadly coming to an end. So if you guys did enjoy, do leave a like, a comment, and do subscribe for more. I have been your lovely host, the Gaming Weasel, and I will see you guys on the next one.